Welcome to the Journey 2020. Charles Morris here on a Monday. So much to talk about as far as people being in our prayers, whether or not it's Afghanistan or whether or not people that's dealing with the virus, whether or not it's the hurricane, life itself. So I have a very close friend that I'm asking people, my church and my circle, to pray for, and that is a friend of mine by the name of Michael Samuels. Mike is a great guy, and he's dealing with cancer. He's over at Moffitt in Tampa. So I ask you to put Michael Samuels on your prayer list. I'm using my resources and asking you to do that for me. Michael Samuels. He's dealing with cancer over at Moffitt in Tampa. Anyway, I'm Charles Morris. This is the Journey 2020, where we come to you every Monday at 7 p.m. We've been around since 2013. And I used to do the show with a gentleman by the name of Dr. John Robertson, who is a clinical psychologist here in the area of Robinson Associate. And the show itself was his idea, and he was on with me for a few years, and I think I've been doing the show now by myself for the last maybe 4 or 5 years. And he says that he's going to come back on the show at some. And he actually had been on the show, and he's been on Brother Can We Talk. That was a show that we did for a very short time. He's been on another show that I do called the Pastor's Roundtable. And Dr. Robinson is a very good guy. And I actually met Dr. Robinson through another clinical psychologist who actually passed away. And I knew him before I met Dr. Robinson, because I met Dr. Robinson through him, and that is Charles English, who was very well known here in the area. It's funny because the show today is going into my archives, and I've been doing my youth summit. I haven't been able to do it now for the last year and a half, but this would have been my 21st year of my youth summit, which is called the What's My Anti-Drug Youth Summit. So it's funny, I didn't intend to talk about Dr. English before we started the show, but Dr. English had been working with me for years when I was with Orange TV and had my youth program, and he was very much was part of many panels that I had over a period of some time, depending on the topic. He had been on Be Positive and a few of the summits as a panelist on numerous occasions. And for my youth summit, which was, I forgot what the topic was. Over the years, I've probably about 4 times over the period of years, working with the Urban League. A few times we did a show on what to do in case you're stopped by law enforcement. So, that's always a good topic, and that never gets old. And so you invite people to come on and share their experience of being stopped by law enforcement. You invite law enforcement on, the sheriff department, the police department, and they come and they part of the panel and they share. So we go through different scenarios of good cop, bad cop, good person, bad person. We set up these different scenarios for the audience to ask questions and for the law enforcement to tell their side. And so those type of things been going on. So we probably have done that about 4 or 5 times over the period of the years. It's always very successful. I did one very much with the Urban League, and that was very successful as well. But I say all of that to say that I didn't intend to say anything about Dr. English, but the funny thing was he was on my panel that Saturday, and asked him to stay and have lunch, because as part of the summit, of course, you serve lunch. And he said, Charles, I had a early breakfast and blah, blah, blah. So I said, come on and stay and eat lunch. So he said, okay. So he ate lunch with us that day, and was a very successful summit. And so the very next day, people who don't know me, I do a lot of fishing. And so at that time, right after church, every Sunday, I would go with a New Smyrna and fish. So that Sunday, I'm fishing, and Dr. Robinson calls me and tells me that Dr. English passed away. And I'm like, what? Now, mind you, that Saturday, he was there at my summit on the panel, and we had lunch. Everything was fine. And then the next day I'm fishing, and Dr. Robinson called me, who I was speaking of, the show idea came from him, and said, Dr. English passed. He had a heart attack. So I was like, wow. So just like that. So I was just tying in Dr. English and Dr. Robinson and the Journey 2020 and how all of this came to be. But going into the archives and talking about the summit, I said I've been doing it for 20 years, and we've covered so many things on numerous occasions. And it started out as the What's My Anti-Drug Karate Tournament that led into the workshops. And we always would bring in a speaker and have a message for the kids. And the karate was just a way of just bringing people in to deliver the message and to plant the seed. It evolved into the workshops, which it is today, and actually haven't had the karate part of it in a while. But the workshops, we have workshops for the parents, we have a workshop for girls, and we have a workshop for the males, the boys. And then we all come together for one workshop. And so going into the archives, I'm going back because over the years we've dealt with sex trafficking and those type of things. And so this was back in 2017. And I know Miss Ronnie is going to be so surprised to see this video because I videotaped her session, and I'm showing it today because sex trafficking is a big issue around the country, but people have no idea how sex trafficking is a major problem in the state of Florida. It is a multi-million-dollar, could be $1 billion industry, but it's huge in Florida. It is huge, and people have no idea how huge sex trafficking is here in the Florida area, especially here in Central Florida. And so if you are a parent, listen up. If you have daughters or even sons, I encourage you to listen to my speaker that came in. This is back from 2017. So let me read my notes. This is what she actually texted me as I introduced her as my speaker, as we were talking about sex trafficking back then as part of the What's My Anti-Drug Youth Summit. Her name is Ronnie Peirce. Trains and coordinates speakers for the Florida Abolitionists to help stop humans trafficking. Her professional experience includes campus ministry, distant-based leadership, coaching, and teaching middle school and high school English. In Orlando residence since 1994, she believes our young people are valuable and love advocating for their success. See, that's what I like. I like a nice short profile, and that's cool because people, man, people profiles be like this long, and all that stuff. It's funny. Now, I'll just share this with you. This is me. This has nothing to do with nobody else but me. Okay? It has nothing to do with nobody else. Over the years, on numerous occasions, I've been asked to come out and speak. Sometimes people ask me to come speak. And they ask me for a profile. And so my profile says this. I'm serious. This is all it says. This is just me. This has nothing to do with nobody else. It says, it gives my name. I'm from Jacksonville, Florida. I graduated with a bachelor's degree, and I'm a believer of Jesus Christ. That's all it says. That's all it needs to say, because everything came through him, and everything comes through him. So without him, There's nothing else. There is nothing. So because I'm a believer, and that's where my blessing comes from, that's who wakes me up every morning, that's who have provided me with the ability to think, speak, talk, learn, doors open, close. That's all they need to know. That's it. There's nothing else. Start with him, ends with him in the story. Anyway, that's my profile. Nothing special about it because I'm nothing but dust. Anyway, on today's show, went into the archives. Ms. Peirce is going to talk about sex trafficking. And if you have any kids, if you have anybody who you know, especially now with the internet, it is such a big problem. And as she speaks on it, she talks about in an hour, you can like, and as a matter of fact, I was watching, and they do this all the time. So this is nothing new. I was just watching about a week ago. They caught several people. And what made the news was as they caught maybe about like 15 people, 12 to 15 people, and 3 of them, of course, work for Disney. So you know if Disney is part of it, they're going to announce that these sex traffickers, they're Disney employees. And they were like, not that it makes any difference, but they worked at Disney, at like the warehouse and blah, blah, just the fact that they work for Disney. Media are going to bring that up. And so it's just common here, I guess, all over the country that they pretend. And to be honest, this happened to me years ago. I'm going to get to the video, share this with you. This happened to me years ago, sometime. But I was on the internet, and I don't forget where I was on the internet. But this thing popped up, and it was this girl who said hi, right? And when it popped up, she was trying to have a conversation with me. But I could tell what it was. I could tell by the way the conversation was trying to go that this was like, it wasn't who they said. I could tell that it was a cop trying to pretend to be a girl just by the language. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but this is not me. And I know you're a cop. Got to go by. Not that I would be interested, but people get lured. I know somebody who got lured in, and they were associated with this person because the person actually lied about their age. When they originally started talking to them, the person told them that they were over 18. And then when they built the association with the person, he later found out that she was 16. Long story short, he got busted. He got busted. Originally, everything was in his association with her had nothing to do with the cops. They came later onto something else because they actually had started a relationship and he liked her. She was just underage. I'm not using that as an excuse, but I'm saying he got lured in. Unfortunately, once he found out that she was underage, he didn't cut it off because now he done been sucked in and they have this relationship. And she like him, he like her, and da da da. And he's trying to help her out, do some stuff, but she was underage. Cops found out about it, was texting him on behalf of her, and that's how they got him because he was trying to say, "Hey, won't you go?" Now they're talking to each other, and now he's acknowledging, say, "Hey, you're underage, but can you go and like get a fake ID or something like that?" But he's talking to the cops. So it was crazy. He was like 58 years old. He's like 58 years old. He's dealing with the little, anyway. This is from my youth summit, and we're talking about sex trafficking. I said I was going to get to the video. This is Ms. Ronnie Peirce, and we appreciate her coming out and spending time with us at the What's My Anti-Drug Youth Summit. Pay attention. a lot of good information, something for you to pass along to your daughters or your kids. And I want to thank her again for taking the time to come and hang out with us on a Saturday morning at the downtown. We was at the Smith Center. We was at the John H. Smith Center here in Orlando. And also want to thank at the time Commissioner Ames, who helped and was one of the sponsors who provided the place in the building.
The city of Orlando. Today, what I want to do is I want to define trafficking for you. I want to help you understand how big the problem is here in Central Florida. I want you to understand the backstory, like how does this happen to young people? What are the strategies that people use to exploit other people? I want you to be able to recognize the signs, and I want you to know what to do if you think you do see signs, because you might. And hopefully also you'll be able to protect yourself. Okay, that's very important to me. I don't know, is there a way to dim the lights a little bit, or would that, it might not be possible.
Let me check.
All right, if you can, great. If not, I'm going to just use this as my own. Sex trafficking is a huge and growing problem here in our whole nation, in the whole world, but definitely here in Central Florida. There are at least 20 million slaves being trafficked in the world today. At least 100,000 children in the United States are exposed to trafficking every year. That's according to the United States. It's the Institute for Missing and Exploited Children. That's their statistic. And also, I don't know if you realize this, but the state of Florida is ranked 3rd in the nation for sex trafficking. And the city of Orlando is ranked 3rd in the state. And that number comes from the Polaris study, and it's based on how many phone calls come in. The top states are California, Texas, Florida, and then Ohio. And here's the reason why. Human trafficking is all about the almighty dollar, okay? It's currently valued at $150 billion. The only criminal enterprise that makes more money than sex trafficking is drug trafficking. And sex trafficking is quickly catching up to that. So even a lot of the gangs and the groups that do the drug trafficking, they're adding, it's like their business, right? If there's demand for a certain product, some enterprising person is going to supply it. And there's a high demand for cheap, sex without any commitment or love involved. And so there's evil people who will supply it. The reason why is because, think about drugs, okay? You want a joint, you buy it, you smoke it, it's gone. You gotta go buy another one, right? And so the drug trafficker has to go to whatever country or his backyard or whatever he does for his drugs and resupply, right? But if you own a person as a slave and you're selling them, the person is recycled. You can use the same little boy or the same girl over and over and over, right? It doesn't cost as much money. So your profit margin is a lot higher. And that's a big reason why sex trafficking has grown to be a bigger and bigger problem in our nation. This is the Florida statute. And I don't know if you can see it, but I know you guys work on your vocabulary words at school, right? I'm a teacher, I know how this works. Think if you know what these words mean as I read this statute. Transporting. That means taking someone in your car or taking them somewhere, right? Soliciting. Soliciting is when I say, hey, would you be willing to have sex with other people for money? Like I'm inviting you to do this thing that's not right or legal. Recruiting. You guys all know what recruiting is. Harboring. Providing. Enticing. Maintaining or obtaining another person for the purpose of exploitation of that person. And to exploit a person means, if I exploit you, it means I get you to do something that you didn't want to do. And I benefit from it. If I exploited you, maybe I would try and get you, hey, let's go into the dollar store. We're friends, right? You want me to love you, right? Hey, could you shoplift that pair of earrings for me? And then you get caught. I get the earrings, you get the record, right? I've exploited you. I've used you. You didn't want to do that. Originally that wasn't in your grid, right? But I kept pressuring you and enticing you. Hey, if you do that, take you out to lunch, right? That's illegal. And this is the law that says that it's illegal. And it's the same for trafficking. Trafficking is the exploitation of another person. I want you to think about, in our history, when is a time when there were a group of people that was made to do something that they didn't want to do, and other people benefited from it? Slavery, before the Civil War, the plantation owners, right? I don't want to work in the fields and have a terrible life, and sweat and not have enough food, and be taken away, have my children sold out from under me, right? So that you can profit as the tobacco plantation owner. That's exploiting, that's slavery. This is the exact same thing. This is modern day slavery. And it still exists, and 40% of trafficked victims are African Americans. This is not acceptable, and something needs to be done to change it. And you guys need to know what the problem is and help take action against it. I want you to know the definition, too, a little bit. But do you guys ever do this in school where you compare and contrast? Yeah, and so there's a prostitute, and there's the prostitute or prostituted. There's the trafficked victim, and then there's the lady or man who's decided to go into business for themselves as a prostitute. And there are some differences between the two. Okay, a prostitute is trading sex for money, and both parties are willing. It's very rare that this is the true situation. Much more often, the prostituted person is being traded as an owned commodity. She's being coerced, or he is being coerced and exploited, and not benefiting. They don't get any of the money. These victims that are having sex with other people, their owners get the money. They don't make any profit. And that cannot just be sex. Sometimes it's labor as well. But the thing both of these have in common is they often, well, they're all being treated like objects. They often have a history of being abused in their past. And they often feel like they don't have many other options. They feel trapped. But there's other times and situations, other than what, like you guys shared some things about people being stolen away from their parents and forced into this. But these are also legal definitions of sex trafficking. Survival sex. So you've got a young person and their mom and dad kicked them out and they don't have a place to stay, and they ask if they can stay on this guy's couch. And he says, sure, you can stay on my couch if you'll have sex with me or do sexual acts with me. That is a sex trafficking. If you're trading with an adult to have a place to stay or for money, if you're a minor, you're under 18, that's trafficking. A pimp, prostituting a minor or controlling an adult. I think that's the one that we're all most familiar with. Or, this is much more common than you might think here in the city of Orlando. Maybe you know situations like this. A parent who trades their child for drugs, money. That's illegal and it's trafficking. And it's heartbreaking and sad. And often those are the people that grow up to embrace the life of prostitution because they feel so damaged. Okay, the next thing I want to talk to you about is, how does this happen? How do people get tricked into this? Traffickers look for easy prey, okay? They look for young people who are naive. Raise your hand if you know what the word naive means. What does it mean? You don't know? What? Who can tell me what the word naive means? No, that's not quite. What were you going to say? Easy to manipulate. What's your name? Thank you. That's excellent. Yes, a naive person is easy to trick, easy to manipulate. There's some people that are just, oh, everything's fine, everyone's nice, I trust everyone. And traffickers look for those people that trust everyone and are easy to manipulate. Another thing that traffickers look for is someone who's been mistreated when they were little. Because people who've been mistreated get used to it, right? Their radar's kind of broken, and other people can easily mistreat them. A troubled family, foster care, a group home. A lot of these people that get tricked into trafficking have never been loved by someone unless that person, it was their job and they got paid for it. So if only your people who love you are your teacher, your house parent in your foster home, the medical people in your life, your counselor, and that's their job. That's great. And you want to take all that love you can get. But if you don't have people that love you just because of your family, just because you're friends at school or something like that, you're easy prey for a trafficker to trick and betray. A lot of times people are starved for affection, but the hugest, biggest, most important thing that traffickers look for is drug addiction. If you become a drug addict, eventually, this is how you will pay for your drugs. You will be willing to be sold and not benefit from it financially because your owner or your pimp will just keep giving you drugs. Sometimes kids are just in a really bad situation. Maybe their parents aren't treating them right, or they're being abused or mistreated, and they're looking for a way out. And they meet this person who's promising them things, and like, oh, I just need to change things up. And so they take a chance, and they're wrong, because they took a chance with the trafficker and they didn't know. You might ask yourself, okay, so like this girl Jenny, she got tricked, and she got trafficked, right? Why didn't she just run away? Like, what is it about her that makes her stay with this horrible person who's mistreated? Yeah. She thought they were friends. Yeah. She thought they were good people. That's true. I want you to imagine something, okay? Imagine that something really traumatic has happened to you, that changed who you were, and made you feel horrible about yourself. That's usually something that a trafficker will do. They'll assault you, they'll beat you, they'll scream things at you until you kind of give up who you are, and who you are changes, and you're not the strong person that you used to be. You're not the person who values yourself. Sometimes they call it Stockholm Syndrome. You develop this weird traumatic bond with your trafficker, and you think, oh, if only I was better at being a prostitute, then my trafficker would love me, and he wouldn't make me do anything. That's really twisted, right? But your mind changes like that, and it makes it hard to want to run away. Another reason why is because you don't see yourself as a victim. A lot of times the way that a young lady gets tricked into trafficking, she does make some kind of foolish or poor choice herself. Maybe she gets drunk. Maybe she took some drugs, and then while she was sort of out of it and not in control of herself, people took advantage of her. Now she feels really ashamed of it. Maybe she thought, you know what, I need to make some easy money. I think I'll go work at the strip joint. And so she did that, and she knows that was stupid or wrong, and that she shouldn't have done that. And so now the trafficker tricked her. She thinks the whole thing is her fault, that it's all her fault. And it makes it hard for her to want to run away. Another reason why they don't run away is because they're afraid. Okay? In the past, you got trafficked and you got caught. It was just like our little shoplifting thing. You're the one who went to jail. I'm the trafficker. I tricked you, I trapped you, I made you do illegal things. I took all the money from it, but when you got caught, I just waited in my penthouse for you to get out of jail so you could get back to work. We're the one who paid the price. That is changing. Our law enforcement is being educated, and they're learning that a lot of times that person who's being prostituted is a victim, and they need to be helped and they need to be rescued. But the people on the streets don't know that. They don't know that they can turn to law enforcement for help. They're too afraid. Another reason why they might be too afraid to ask for help is they might be being threatened. If I said to you, if you don't do what I want, I'm going to kill your mom. I'm going to beat up your grandma. I'm going to take your little brother away. You're never going to see him again. If I said that to you, and I had a gun, and I was mean, and you knew that I meant it, and I was going to do it, it's really hard to run away. It's hard to be brave enough to run away. So those people that don't run away, they need our compassion. We need to understand that their life is really complicated. See, I think there's one more reason. Oh, I know the other reason. Two more reasons. Let's say I took away your ID. Do you have a driver's license or a student ID? Yeah. Let's say I took that away from you. Let's say I took away your phone, and And let's say I took away all your clothes. And I owned everything you had. Everything about you was mine, and I was in control of it. You didn't know what town you were in. I controlled your transportation. I isolated you. I eliminated your, I don't know if you guys do Facebook, but I eliminated your Twitter, your Instagram, your whatever it is that you do on social media. You had no contact anymore with the people that loved you, and you had no resources, no money, no ID, and you can't even cover yourself up unless I say you can and that you have something to do that. It is very hard to run away in those circumstances. But the final and most chilling and difficult reason why people don't run away is the trick about drugs. Oh, you don't want to do this? You're kind of scared about doing this for me? How about you take this pill? How about you smoke this joint? It'll help you. It'll help you be brave. And I'll give you another one when you're done. So you do the thing that you didn't want to do.
They give you the drug, and it helps you deal with the sadness and shame of what just happened to you, right? Well, then you want more of the drug. And now I have you hooked. Because unless you do it again, I won't give you any more drugs. And now you're a drug addict, and I'm using your addiction to keep you trapped. And that is a huge, main, number one reason why people don't run away from this life and why they're trapped. Okay? Now I want to tell you about the trafficker, the master manipulator. And don't kid yourself, they're just as often women as they are men. But for this sake, we're going to use men. At first, a trafficker is a Romeo, okay? They're very glamorous. They buy you jewelry. They take you out to a really nice, expensive restaurant. They buy beautiful clothes. They take pictures of you. They say, you should be a movie star. You're so beautiful. Your voice is amazing. You should be a music star, and I'm going to help you, right? They're very glamorous. Oh, your eyes are so beautiful. Has anyone ever told you how beautiful your eyes are? What are your dreams in life? I want to help you. I want to help you know what your dreams are. What a trafficker does is they look for weakness in you or desire or whoever you are as a person, and then they use that against you to trick you, to trap you, to manipulate you. Often, they'll meet immediate needs. Oh, you want that iPhone? I'll get you that iPhone. And they create a sense of debt. I bought you this really expensive thing. Now you should do some things for me. And sometimes it's hard, especially when you're a young person, to resist that. So they're Romeos at first. But here's a new place they're Romeos. They are Romeos on the internet. Okay, there's a guy, a police officer, that works for the city of Orlando. And when he goes to work in the morning, in 1 hour, he can catch on the internet 30 men pretending to be teenagers, seeking to have sex with a minor girl. 30 in an hour. And the girls, they don't know. They believe. Because you can make yourself be whoever you want on the internet, right? You can change your picture and your ID. You can talk like you're younger. Hey, let's meet up. And young people fall for it. They don't understand that the person on the internet is fake. They're not a real person. It's a trick. And so here's some things you need to look for on the internet. First of all, you should not be making friends with people that you don't know their face, right? If you never sat by them or have a conversation, social media is not the way to make new friends. It's a way to cultivate the friendships that you already have and stay in touch with people. But it's dangerous to meet new people on the internet. It just is. And reasonable people know that, and they don't do it. So here's what I want you to listen for. When you make a friend on the internet, and this friend says to you, your life is tough, man. Nobody understands me like you. No one understands you like I understand you. You are special, you're unique, and I'm the only one who gets that. Okay? That's not true. It's true that you're special and you're unique. But most reasonable people know that. They know you're a valuable person, right? God knows that, I know that, and I don't even know your name, right? So when someone tells you that on the internet, do not fall for that. It's a trick. They're not necessarily a good person, and they don't necessarily want your best. And then the other thing you look out for is a one-way ticket. Hey, you deserve to have a little fun. I'm going to get you a bus ticket. You meet me up in Atlanta, and we're going to go see the Coca-Cola factory, because I know how much you like Coca-Cola. If it's a one-way ticket, if it's a ticket to anything, a bus ticket, a plane ticket, anything like that, you should be very suspicious. Those are two of the very common strategies, because a lot of Romeos don't just snatch you and kidnap you and take you away and drug you. A lot of them convince you, what is it you said, they manipulate you. And they try to trick you into choosing this kind of a life. So I want you guys to know what the strategies are so that you don't fall for them. And you talk to your friends hard if you feel like your friends are going to fall for them. Because once you leave the country, it's really hard to get you back, right? And if it happens, let's say I'm in, name another country. Africa. If I'm in Africa, I don't know how common that is, but let's say I'm in Africa and I'm soliciting you on the internet and I get you, your parents can't call the police, right? It happened in another country. That person's only subject to the laws of their country. So if I'm trying to get you from Russia, from China, from some of these other places, the police can't help your parents get you back. And so you need to know about that. That's a huge, huge danger. So basically, over time, the trafficker, once they've lured you in, they start to groom you. They start to ask you to do things that you normally wouldn't do. And they gradually, oh, you'd be a great model. But I just want you to take your shirt down a little lower so I can get a picture of that. Like over time, they're trying to get you to do weirder and weirder things and think that they're normal. But eventually, they usually try and get you to do drugs, and they usually do something really violent and traumatic to you. And then after that, they switch to the actual trafficking. They might force you to watch pornography, so that just like, well, what's something you do karate or something, or a sport? You do karate? Yeah, I do karate too. And you learn that skill. They'll say, oh, you got to watch this pornography, so you learn the skills of how to do this, and they force you to watch it. And it's really sad. And a lot of times, a lot of men don't know this, but a lot of times when you go on the internet and you're watching people in pornography, you know how some people look at pornography on the internet? It's really tempting. Usually why people do that is for acceptance, and they think this woman wants to be on the internet, and they don't know that actually she might have been given drugs, or she might have been threatened that if she doesn't do this, it's going to hurt her family. But a lot of times they're not willing people doing this on the internet for pornography. I'm not saying that's always the case, but it's often the case, because being the object of a pornographic video is usually the first step that a trafficker takes when they're bringing you into the life. Let's see if there's anything else about that. Oh, and then usually they switch you to another town. They take you away from what you know, so that even if you ran away, you don't know what town you're in, what street you're on, how to get people. Fortunately, you can put a guy like this in jail, and you don't have to prove that he trafficked. All you have to prove is that he tried to coerce, that he used force, that he threatened you, that he tried to establish a debt, that he took away your ID. If someone takes away your ID and tries to control it, that's illegal. The lawyers can prove that. They don't necessarily have to prove all the rest. So these guys can be caught. Enticing by fraud and deceit, that woman that tricked Jenny. Providing a controlled substance to exploit, that means giving drugs so that I can get you to do what I want. All those things are illegal, and the lawyers know the tricks, and they can get these guys in trouble. And that's great news for us. So I work with a group called Florida Abolitionist, and we try to help people see all these signs and know what to do. We try to help the actual victims when they're rescued. Do you know, last year in the city of Orlando, 100 victims were rescued from trafficking. And they got a place to live, they got detox from drugs, they got counseling, they got help getting new jobs, they got anything that they needed. People networked and provided for them so that they could have a different life if they wanted it, if they had the courage to embrace it. But another thing we do is prevention. So we have a team that goes into juvenile detention centers and teaches the people at risk there, people like me that go around and travel and talk to people like you to help prevent it. Because it's a lot easier to prevent it than to fix it once it's happened, right? That makes good sense to you? But I want you to know that you can make a difference too when it comes to trafficking. Number one, you can be smart and not get tricked in yourself, but I want you to know what the signs are, okay? So let's say you're staying in a hotel, and you see someone come in, and that person's not allowed to talk. So Charles brought me into a hotel, right? And I'm trying to talk to the clerk, and not that Charles is really a trafficker, but if he were, let's say he steps in front of me, and he won't let me talk, and he just looks at me and points at a couch, and I just quietly go over and sit down. He's got my ID, and he's speaking for me, and whenever I try to speak for myself, he shuts me down. That's a big sign of trafficking, okay? Another sign of trafficking is that people clearly aren't related to each other. So a man and a woman walk into a hotel, and you can tell they're not husband and wife. You can tell they're not boyfriend and girlfriend. There's something weird about it. Or the guy says he's the father, but he's not old enough to be that girl's father. There's something weird. They're together, but they're not family. Can you just get that vibe? These are two really big signs of someone who's controlling identification or speech, and someone who's with a person who's clearly not related to them. But these other things are true as well. Another thing you can look for is branding. So if I'm a pimp and I got 4 girls, or if I'm a female pimp and I got 4 little boys, or whatever it is that I'm selling to other people, a lot of times I'll tattoo them so that you know they're mine. And usually I'll tattoo them right here, in their lip, right? And people know that. Or I might do it on their arm or something, a dollar sign or something like that, so that people know. So you look for those things. And if you think someone's being trafficked, you need to call this hotline number. And I'd encourage you to take a picture of this phone number with your phone. And I know it looks weird. They did it like this so you can remember it, okay? But it's 888-373-788. And you call that number, and they know what to do. And you say, hey, I think there might be a trafficking situation here. They'll ask you questions, they'll get all the information, and then they'll pass it on to the appropriate people to get the help that you need. Okay? So that's a huge thing that you can do to make a difference. But if you know it's trafficking, just call 911. The police will know. Say, I think I see a trafficking situation, and the police will know. If you see something, you should say something. Be brave. Speak up for your friends and speak up for yourself. But another thing that you can do is, who do the traffickers look for? They look for people that don't feel very good about themselves. They look for people that are lonely or people that have been mistreated. You get there first. If you see a kid sitting alone in the lunchroom, you invite him to join your group, right? If you see a kid being mistreated at school, stick up for them. Invite them, include them in your circle of friends, because then they are not easy prey. They're a lot harder for the trafficker to trick and trap when they know they have people that care about them. So that's a huge thing you can do. People really underestimate that, but I think that's one of the most important things you can do to help prevent trafficking. You get there first, so that they are not interested in the trafficker's fake love. They have real friends that care about them and think they're valuable. So this is a famous quote by William Wilberforce in England, who successfully eliminated slavery without a civil war, but it took him a long time to do. Okay? But we have a problem today of modern-day slavery. So you can choose to look the other way, but you can never say again that you did not. And that's the end of my presentation. Does anybody have any questions before I go? I can take a few questions before we move on.
Question?
Yes, sir. You in the back.
What was the number for the hotline again?
What did you say?
What was the number for the hotline?
It was 888-3737-888. The hotline number is 888-3737-888. Does anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir.
Remind me not to let themselves get taken somewhere alone, even by somebody that they think they know.
Oh, it's often people you know. It's often relatives that traffic you. Yeah, you gotta trust your gut. And don't go alone with people, and always let someone know where you went. That's a great word. Anything else? Okay, thank you guys so much for your attention. Sorry, I got a loud voice. know, I went around, these guys, these engineers took me around to all these tables and showed me what you're going to do. You're in for a wild morning. It looks really cool. I'm really excited for you.
Is it the engineers here?
What?
Are the engineers?
Yeah, the engineers are here. There they are right there. They're waiting. They're being so patient, waiting for their turn.
Mommy.
Hello, hello.
Turn the lights back on.
Can we give her another round of applause? Somebody quickly tell me, what did you learn today?
Okay,
Yes?
we learned about
Tell me something that you learned today.
like the trade how trafficking is
All right, we want to thank Ronnie Peirce for taking the time to come and hang out with us at the What's My Anti-Drug Youth Summit. That has been in my archive. That was in December of 2017. What is that, going on like 4 years ago? With that being said, sex trafficking is a big issue around the country, but definitely here in the state of Florida. I advise you and ask you to do a little bit more research and to find out more about some of the things that take place and how these kids and people get caught up in sex trafficking, because it is real and it is a real problem here in the Central Florida area or in Florida, in Florida. I'm Charles Morris, and this is the Journey 2020, where we come to you every Monday at 7 p.m. We ask that you please subscribe to us on our YouTube channel. Make sure that you hit the like button. We appreciate that. And, for questions, comments, or concerns, you can always hit us up with an email. Love to hear from you, definitely. The Journey 2020, where we come to you every Monday at 7 p.m. We've been around since 2013. I am asking for prayers for my friend Michael Samuels, who's battling with cancer. He's over at Moffitt, and Mike is a great guy. Many prayers are going out for those who are dealing with that of the hurricane, those of Afghanistan, those that are dealing with the virus, and the list goes on and on. I'm encouraging everyone to stay prayed up. Also, there's a monthly show that I do, which is called the Pastor's Roundtable. I ask you to be on the lookout for that. If you would, I don't have the Pastor's Roundtable email address with me right now, but you can email me at this email address, and I can, if you would like to be put on the prayer list, you can email me at this email address, and I will also email you the Pastor's Roundtable email address, and I also will let you know the next time the Pastor's Roundtable is on. It is on Facebook as well as YouTube and on the Pastor's Roundtable website. So that's a very informative show where we basically bring pastors together and we talk about things from a biblical standpoint and what it says biblically and by Scripture, what the Scripture have to say, not a personal opinion, not about how we feel, not about emotions. It's about what God has to say. And as I say all the time, the word comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Lord, and that's where it starts. And a lot of times we have to get out of the way and let God do what he does the way that he knows how to do it. So with that being said, again, this is the Journey 2020. And before I leave, I want to share with you again, we've been around since 2013. A lot of stuff is going on. A lot of questions, maybe no answers. But again, thank you, Ronnie Peirce, for taking the time to hang out with us back in 2017 in December as part of the What's My Anti-Drug Youth Summit, talking about sex trafficking. Previously, I went into the archives and I showed video footage from the YES program, which is from Warden Carlisle. He was a warden at the Coleman prison and had these wonderful programs that pertain to our youth and to try to help them stay out of prison. And one of the things that he did was he allowed the women who was part of the YES program to come out into the community. They would go speak to churches and schools. And I am so happy to share with you when they came to Oak Ridge High School. For those who don't know, Oak Ridge High School is a high school here in the Orlando area. And I recorded them that day. And the message, and what they did was they brought in all the females, all the girls in the school at Oak Ridge were brought into the gym. And the message that they had for the young ladies, where they brought in about maybe 8 or 9 female inmates from Coleman Prison, from the YES program. And their message was very powerful because they had different generations of the females. They had some young, they had some middle-aged, and they had a grandmother up in there to tell the story. In the times when you're doing 15, 20, 25, and 30 years. And they're talking about how they got caught up and how it can happen to you. So just as important as the sex trafficking, which I felt is important, and people need to take the time to understand what's really going on, because you think that it can't happen to your child, or maybe you think it can't happen to you. But these scenarios in which these inmates talk about are real, and they happen every day. And they can happen to you, they can happen to your daughter, or they can happen to your son. So in the next couple of weeks, and I will announce here on the Journey 2020 when I'm going to show when the inmates came to Oak Ridge High School. It's very powerful because it's real. And so on today's show, as we went back to 2017, and Ms. Ronnie Peirce came to speak on sex trafficking, and it's a multi-million-dollar industry, and it's very much going on here in the Central Florida area, sex trafficking. And so she talked to the kids, and she answered a few questions. But again, I just encourage you to just stay in touch with what's going on and try not to bury your head in the sand and act like this stuff does not happen, and stop acting like this can't happen to your child or like it can't happen to you. And so with that being said, for questions, comments, and concerns, you can always hit us up with an email. This is the Journey 2020, where we come to you every Monday at 7 p.m. And so with that being said, people, be prayerful. We are in hurricane season. We're still very much caught up in the virus. A lot of stuff is going on. I'm going to try to find a way to do my summit somehow, some way, when I think it's safe. I'm going to try to get it going again. The What's My Anti-Drug Youth Summit. I'm just waiting for the right time. Timing is everything. And I'm going to be prayerful about it, and God will let me know when to start it again. And with that being said, I'm Charles Morris. People, stay prayed up. And remember, we're in hurricane season still. Remember, the virus is still going on. And please put Michael Samuels on your prayer list for me. I would appreciate that. Michael Samuels. He is dealing with cancer. He's in intensive care. He's over at Moffitt. He's over in Tampa. And I ask that you please put him in your prayers. Charles Morris. Remember, the word comes by hearing, and hearing by the word of the Lord. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'm Charles Morris.